Chapters like this prove to me that Chainsaw Man Part 2, while being a slow burn and having a lot of ups and downs and mixed reviews from the community all throughout its runtime, has always been leading to a satisfying payoff that will leave everybody happy in the long run, at least in my opinion. Because with this potentially being one of the biggest final battles of everything, the fact that Denji, of all people, who has had nothing but struggle, trauma, and terrible things happen to him throughout not just Part 2, but especially all the way back in Part 1. This character who has picked himself back up, got dropped back down, and then now in a mental realm with someone that he's finally able to relate to. Someone that finally is giving Denji the space to think and come up with a decision on his own. Because if you really think about it, there is so many moments where Denji tries to just sit down and think what the right decision might be, but he is completely blindsided and pushed and rushed down a direction that might not always be the greatest thing. He constantly has things like sex and other women trying to feign, attraction to him to just throw him off and distract him. And he even says as much during the Aging Devil arc when he's trapped in the aging world, and Yoru continually tries to make moves on Denji, and he says, look, I'm just trying to figure out what is going on, and you just keep coming on to me. And while that's great and all, it is not good for my mental because I don't even know what I'm doing, and I can't even stop and think for one moment to think if I'm doing the right thing. And finally, now that Asa has not only said previously that she wants Denji to make his own decisions and she'll support him no matter what, because Pochita is allowing this time to move on. Because again, last chapter ended with Asa giving Denji and Pochita the one single chance they may have had to end the War Devil completely, eat the body, and while that would sacrifice Asa, it would inadvertently stop the War Devil's plan of enacting an endless World War II. But at the same time, that's just exactly the world that Death wants to create. And that isn't really Denji's decision, even though he was forced to side with the Death Devil and Famine Devil. Is that really what Denji wanted? Because even in this chapter, Denji says himself, that's not a world that we would be able to live normally in. I have always wanted to lead a normal life. And it's so beautiful to see that Pochita makes a decision for Denji here, sure, and you could say that Pochita is just telling Denji what to do, but I think it's more than that. Again, just like Asa, Pochita is doing everything he can to support Denji and help Denji through not only his trauma, but grow as a person and get a chance to lead that normal life. Because remember, that's all Denji ever wanted, and Pochita made a vow with him that he would do everything he could to let Denji live that life for all of the love and attention and care that Denji gave to Pochita. So Pochita not choosing to take Death's side or choose to take Yoru's side either is proof that now that Denji not only has Pochita, who has always just been the inner, demon, quote unquote, that allows Denji, a chance to live that normal life and fight when Denji can't fight for himself. He now has this girl, Asa, who has feelings for him that he can relate to on a level that no one else can, that gives him the space to actually see a third way out of this terrible tragedy that they are in. Because he remembers what the Fire Devil mentioned to him, and he even calls the Fire Devil a smart sounding devil, which shows that Denji is thinking on a more mature level than he really ever has before, right? Honestly, one of the most interesting things to me is the shift completely in Denji's character in this moment. I don't know if anybody else felt that. Denji making his own executive decisions here was not only jarring, but it was whiplash to a degree. Seeing him actually move on from that childhood trauma, seeing him actually, instead of being a child in this inner world, he was his normal teenage adult self, and say, I think it makes sense that Pochita, might be saying that we don't have to follow anybody's rules. We can make our own world. And Asa, I want you to be a part of that world because you and me, we're parent killers. And while that sounds morbid as hell, again, what that represents is something that connects these two characters that Denji and Asa have never had before. Genuine, actual relationship, and there's no alternative motives, there's no hidden secrets. Both of these characters have laid themselves as vulnerable and bare as they possibly could, and they still accept one another. And that acceptance, that connection, is something that allows not only Denji to grow past his trauma, but potentially will allow Asa to to overcome her own trauma and overcome Yoru in general. Potentially even make Yoru a similar, devil that can support Asa just like Pochita can, because we still have no idea if these two characters will be able to be separated. As much as Pochita and Denji say they'll be able to murderize Yoru if she's not working or helping Asa, it's the matter of actually splitting these two characters apart that really is the biggest problem here.
This video is sponsored by GamerSupps, the ultimate energy and focus formula. Use my code NOOP now for 10% off, and thank you GamerSupps for sponsoring the channel.
But I have to say that again, watching Denji make a decision on his own is not only just like such an amazing moment, and I can't describe to you how satisfying that is, being able to have these two characters finally not just acknowledge their feelings, but finally acknowledge that they don't have to follow the lives that everybody else wants them to lead. They can do their own thing. Instead of living two lives like Denji was before, living under the eye of public safety, but also trying to raise Nayuta and be his own person and live as a normal high schooler. He can't do both. He can't be Chainsaw Man and Denji. He has to merge those two things together, which is exactly the decision that he makes. Asa, you and me together will be able to make our own world and make our own choices. Screw everybody else. And honestly, that realization comes at the perfect time, because things would have gotten very, very bad, God forbid Denji and Asa didn't come to this conclusion. Because of course, even though Pochita was well aware and able to participate in battle, the fact that everyone's head got chopped off and Yoru was willing to take Little D's head and put her back on to revive her and make sure she didn't die. To be fair, Yoru makes the claim that if she gets killed indiscriminately, her power could just go off randomly and activate, which is not good. The apocalypse could just start early, which is absolutely scary. But what's even worse is because Yoru technically saved the Death Devil's life, that means that she now owns the Death Devil, because the Death Devil owes her a favor. And she's about to create a death sword that would have 110% been the exact weapon and power that she needed to not just only beat Pochita, but enact the endless war that she always wanted. And unfortunately, or at least fortunately for us and our protagonist, Pochita makes a move fast enough to where he can not only chop off Yoru's arms, but devour death in one swift motion. And it's here. The world without death has finally arrived. Public safety, I mean, for all of the struggles they endured, actually got what they wanted here, because this was always their plan, right? To have Chainsaw Man eat death and potentially evolve humanity. And as death slowly slips from the mind of Yoru, which is so funny, the position she's making, she looks like she's screaming like a toddler, like an angry child, because that's essentially what she is. She's so immature. She's just an angry child devil that wants to enact war and violence endlessly. And now she wants to take revenge on Chainsaw Man for hurting her older sister, when in reality she was about to just turn the Death Devil into a weapon and use her for her own means anyway. In this brief interaction between Yoru and the Death Devil though, when the Death Devil admits that she doesn't want to die because she's excited for the school festival and she has befriended humans, Yoru calls her stupid and says that the Death Devil is a disgrace to the Four Horsemen because they could never befriend humans. It's not in the devil's nature. It never could be. Yet, not only has Pochita shown this to be false, there's also the Fire Devil that has proven to us that devils and humans can coexist and can exist together in peace. While, there's always going to be evil devils, there's always going to be evil humans as well. Even evil humans in the government organizations like public safety, or the goddamn governor of California and the goddamn prime minister of Japan that are willing to sacrifice their own states and countries' livelihoods just to make decent contracts with these devils. And I just have to say that at the end of the day, not only do I have no idea where we can go from here, because with death gone, while in a way this does create again a world where public safety can exist, and while death is gone, which is what Yoru wanted to do in the first place, it's not what Yoru wanted, because Yoru again wanted to make death into a weapon and not just wield that weapon and wield Chainsaw Man as a weapon, but use those weapons to enact the endless war. And now that Pochita has death inside of his belly, as Yoru says, it's too soon to do so. It's definitely possible that Pochita can just vomit death up later, so this is definitely some kind of bargaining chip that Pochita is gonna hold over Yoru, since he's basically stalemating everything, because now Yoru can't kill Chainsaw Man, which is what she wanted to do before death was turned off. She's basically in a Minecraft server and she didn't want death turned off yet. She wanted PvP to stay on until this exact moment where she had absolute power. And now that this fight is essentially useless, Yoru's whole entire plan comes full stop. So I guess the only question is, what the heck comes next? So guys, definitely leave me comments down below what you think is going to happen. I am definitely interested to see what's going on in this story, especially as Fujimoto is just paying more and more off with these characters, and the slow burn of part 2 is definitely beginning to heat up, and unfortunately it seems like maybe come to an end. I've seen so many people say that there's still so much to cover, but I really don't know what else we could do from here. But again, you guys can definitely let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Hit the like button. Peace.